I have a massive headache, but let's just do this. Okay, so if you haven't seen me before, hi, my name's Alice. Great to meet you. Would love if you'd like to subscribe, but obviously you haven't seen a video yet, so keep watching to know if you want to do that. I don't know. Today's video is going to be my where is it again? August wrap up. At the same time as reading books in August, I was also doing the news readathon that G from Book Roast created. Last month, the books I completed were for like the Owls challenge. I didn't spend this month absolutely smack bang focusing on reading. Like, reading wasn't my top priority this month. I've read a decent amount of books, but not as many as I definitely could have read. I could have read easily like a good 3 or 4 more, but I've chosen to focus on other things. As I talk about each book, I'll talk about what subject they're aligned with, but if my memory serves me correctly, I did all 3 challenges for Charms, all 3 challenges for Defence Against the Dark Arts, 2 for Care of Magical Creatures, and 1 for Arithmetic. Altogether, I read 9 books, and these are the books I read. Down you go. Ah! Okie doke, so according to my trusty Goodreads, the first book that I read this month was The Blood of Olympus by Rick Riordan, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I read this for my acceptable in Defence Against the Dark Arts, and so I had to read a last book in a series, which was this one. If any of you did not see my video about my 24-hour readathon in which I read the 4 books at the beginning of this series, I will link that above. But basically this is the concluding novel to the Heroes of Olympus series, which is kind of the second series after the Percy Jackson books. I explain a lot more about it in that video. Both camps are trying to come together and restore the peace and prevent any kind of wars happening. Don't want to give any more than that. Already loads of spoilers. Don't really know what I'll say about that because I really can't give away spoilers. I'm just happy that I remember and now I know that I've finished that series, because Percy Jackson and Rick Riordan's Greek mythology will always have a special place in my heart, so I read this one first. And then the second book I read was for my acceptable in Arithmetic, and this was a book of at least 300 pages, and so I read The Selection by Kira Cass. I've never read any of Kira Cass's books before. It was in a charity shop for 99p, and I just hit myself with a gin. And I'd heard loads of people talk about it on BookTube, but I didn't really know anything about it. I just kind of knew that it was one of those books where you could kind of guess the plot that was happening. But sometimes in the middle of all of these big heavy books, I do enjoy a good book like this. So I actually really love this book. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really love the character America. I wish her name wasn't America. And definitely Maxon over what's his face, the other one. It's a dystopian novel. The whole of society is now set in class systems. So 1s are the elites, and I think it's 8s are like the homeless. America is a 5, and she gets entered into this competition where it's something like 34 eligible females from the kingdom are sent off to the palace for the Prince Maxton to choose his future wife. America enters into the competition and ends up being selected, which you know from the blurb, so this isn't really spoilers. She doesn't want to be in this competition, but whilst you are there, your family receive money. She kind of wants to stay in as long as possible so that she can really help her family. Can't wait to carry on the series. I think it will just be something that, again, I can just use as a break. Okie doke. The next book I read was for my exceeded expectations in Defence Against the Dark Arts, and it was to read a book with a foiled cover. Obviously this is foiled. This is Ink by Alice Broadway. I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I really love the premise of it. Tattoos tell your story. You get a tattoo when you are born. You get tattoos when you are top in your class, for how old you are. When you choose a profession, you get a tattoo to show that. And obviously you can pick and choose any other tattoos that you would like to show your story. And this is about our main character, what on earth's her name? Leora. And it's about her father, who is a flayer, which is when you die, your skin gets made into a book and it gets tested to see whether your life is worthy or not, to be prepared, because for them basically all they want is to be remembered when they die, and if the book is preserved then you get remembered by the community and by your family and all of that jazz. And so when things start to go a little bit wrong, Leora is stuck trying to figure out what her family have told her is the truth. I mainly got this book because A, it's a beautiful cover, and B, it was £2 on Amazon when I bought it, and Hayley and Bookland recommended it, so I just thought it was such an interesting concept, the way they think about it, because it is despised against if you are a blank. If you have no tattoos, you are forgotten, you do not get remembered. Okie doke. And the next book I read was an absolute fat whopper. If I can remember the name, that would be great. Oh my god, I nearly dropped it. Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare, and this book is something ridiculous, like 700 pages, 699 pages. And I read this for my outstanding in Defence Against the Dark Arts because I had to have the word dark in the title or series name, and this is in the series The Dark Artifices. I wanted to get this read, so that is why I picked this one. I give this a 4 out of 5 stars, and this is another book in the Shadowhunter world, and it follows the Blackthorn family and Emma Carstairs. Emma and Julian are, I don't know whether it's Parabatai or Parabati, because that's what they say in the American Shadowhunters, but I say, what do I say? I don't say Parabati, I say Parabatai. Do I? It's basically just you have each other's backs and you fight side by side. It is closer than best friends and siblings and everything. So this is going to be really confusing to get into because once again there is a 5-book series before this, and then there's also another 3-book series in this world, and so this will be very difficult to explain. So I'm kind of struggling on that. Basically lots of stuff went down at the end of the last book. In this book they think everything is sorted, they think life is going to go fine and dandy and that all the problems they had are just going to go away, but actually problems they thought they had dealt with, very much dealt with, are back and are smacking them in the face. Yeah, basically. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was very long. This is the only thing I'll say with Cassandra Clare's books. The length puts me off of reading them, like it seriously does. Great book if you love the Shadowhunters world. For a casual read, it is not so casual. The next book I read was for my Acceptable in Charms, and this was to read a book with magic in it, so I read Sea Glass by Maria V. Schneider. This is the 5th book in the series, in the 9-book series, but it is technically then the 2nd book of the 2nd trilogy. It's a very confusing series, but it is incredible. I would 10 out of 10 recommend. This carries on following Opal Cohen, who is the glass magician. We first kind of discover her in the 3rd book in the series, and the 2nd trilogy, so the 4th, 5th and 6th books are all about her. In the last book they discovered that she has some interesting abilities that could become quite a threat to the magic community. She is in a bit of a tricky situation where even her teachers don't know whether to trust her. She's in a very threatened position right now, and so it's about her learning what she can do with this gift that she has and whether she is going to use it for good or bad. Someone is after her, but she doesn't know who that person is, so she doesn't know who to trust. I just love these books. I just love these books. They are so well written that you fall in love with absolutely every single character. They make me want to do 6 hours of weapon training a day just because that's what Ari and Janko tell me to do, so I just obviously want to do it. If you want a fantasy series to really get into, especially fantasy series following a female protagonist, please read the Poison Study book, which is the 1st book in this entire series. It follows a different main character, but I promise you'll love it. If you want to give fantasy a go, please do. A 10 out of 10 would recommend. Hello! The next book I read was for my Exceeded Expectations and Charms, and it was to read a book that the cover would have intrigued you first even if you didn't know anything about the book. And that was basically how I bought this book. I got it from a charity shop again, £3. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, and it's got loads of awards, and the cover is like a big truck with stars and like symbols all around the edge. And I really didn't know anything about this book. All I knew was that it was about 2 boys because of this and the blurb. But I absolutely love this book. It's about 2 boys who struggle with friendships other than each other, but they just seem to really get on with each other, and they just click and they protect each other and are just connected in a really great way that definitely serves them too very well. Thank you. You can't open the door. He has just got slipped under my door. So Ari is a very, very quiet kid. He doesn't really have many friends. He meets Dante because Dante teaches him how to swim. It's just a story all about their friendship basically. And I don't want to spoil it because I really don't want to give away the ending. I absolutely love this book. I was at first expecting it to end the way it did, but then I was like, oh no, that's not how it's going to go. I just thought this was an absolutely incredible book. And it was really interesting to see inside these boys' heads, because especially Ari, because I've never thought like him before. And I can't describe it, but this is just an incredible book. It's a contemporary book. There's some really good, what's it called, familial relationships in here. It's not just about Ari and Dante discovering their relationship, but it's about everyone in the families discovering their relationships too. It is just an absolutely beautiful book, and I would 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 10 recommend. Please read, please read. It got all these awards for a reason. The next book I read was for my Outstanding in Charms, and it is a book that you think will leave a mark, and so for this I picked The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is a book about police brutality on black people. They're making a movie out of it, and I've seen the trailer and I think I'm really excited to go and see it. First I was a bit apprehensive about reading this book. Again, I got this from 99p from a charity shop. I think it's such an important book to read, especially for someone like me who I am very ignorant in this situation because it's not something that I've experienced, and so being able to read from Star's perspective and seeing the way that the police and the media portray the murder that happens is just a really crucial book that I think everyone should read, which is why I chose it for the book I think will leave a mark, and it definitely has. Learning more about it and being more aware is crucial. Please everyone read it. I know I'm very bad at articulating my words. If you don't like reading books, watch the movie when it comes out. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think everyone should read this. Okay, so the next book I read was for my acceptable in Care of Magical Creatures, and it was to read a book with an animal on the cover. So again, I got this from a charity shop for 99p. I read The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. Loads of people really love this book. I don't quite think it's an historical fiction. I think it's a historical fantasy novel, including Russian folklore. It was not my favourite. It definitely took me a while to get into it. Even things like the names of these people like Batyushka, I don't understand. I didn't quite get. It is basically a story about this family who there is some kind of witchy craft in their ancestry when a priest gets sent down to their village many years later. He tries to drive away all the belief of the household spirits and just instills this fear of God into these people. The main girl we follow, called Vasilisa, is one of the only people that can see these household spirits, and so you can see the damage that this father is doing to her village, and she kind of sets about determined to save it. And so it's kind of following this headstrong young girl, like 14 maybe, dealing with her being able to see all these monsters that are tormenting her village. I know that some people absolutely love this book, but it just was not my cup of tea. So I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I wasn't excited to read it whilst I was reading it. I think I'm glad I did, just to experience a different type of book for me, but not my favourite. 3 out of 5 stars. And then for my exceeded expectations in Care of Magical Creatures, I had to read a book that was shorter than 160 pages, and so I attempted to participate in a book swap thing on Instagram recently. Luckily I did receive one. It kind of flopped a bit because I sent my book to the stranger. 6 people were meant to send me books, but I only received 1. But I'm glad I received 1 because some people did not receive any. Anyway, I received this book called The Paper House by Carlos Maria Dominguez. I butchered that. I had no clue what it was about, so I decided to read that because obviously this is the stranger who sent this to me, their favourite book. Short stories are not my thing because I feel like you can't get as into them. This was kind of a true story. It wasn't a fiction story really, so there were no characters to connect with. It was the telling of a true story about a woman who died and got a really old, ancient, dirty book sent to her, and one of her colleagues sets off trying to find out where the book came from. Spoiler, it turns out that the guy who sent the book went a little bit cuckoo. He was collecting books as loads of people do, but in the end he built a house using them. He paid someone to do it, but that's where the book came from. And I put some little bits of paper in, and there are some incredible quotes about books in here, but I would not choose to read it. For example, one of the quotes about books: "Nobody wants to mislay a book. We prefer to lose a ring, a watch, our umbrella, rather than a book whose pages we will never read again, but which retains, just in the sound of its title, a remote and perhaps long lost emotion." And there's more basically about how libraries are like your window to a person's soul. But in terms of book quotes, it's great, but it's definitely not my thing. So I actually gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. Not the best note to end the month on, but I will be keeping it though because I think the way I received the book was really interesting, so I feel like I want to keep it. And I have no idea who sent this to me, and I don't really want to find out. Oh, but one interesting thing though is that this was translated from Spanish, so I don't think I've ever read a book that was originally written in another language before. But yeah, so that is all I have for today. 9 books in the month of August. Very happy with that. If any of these you've read or you want to read, please chat to me in the comments below. But yeah, so that is all from me for today. I really hope you guys have an amazing day. I'm going to love you and leave you, and I will hopefully see you next Monday with another video.